Hello everybody, this is Goji73 here with a figure review. It is time for the next Bandai figure review, and now that Reed-Arako has been reviewed and put out of the way, here is the next monster to review of those bunch of figures. The Spark Doll Tyrant. Now before I go any further with this review, yes, I have gone on record stating that I wouldn't be getting any Spark Dolls. However, I do have a particular reason to get this one, which I will explain at the end of the review. With that said, let's get on to the review itself. As far as history goes, he first appeared in Ultraman Taro as a conglomeration of monsters who've appeared in the past, who've come together to form a combination of monsters altogether. For example, breaking down his anatomy, here are the monsters that make up his anatomy. His head comes from Sigorus, his ears come from Alien Icarus, his arms come from Barabas, his torso comes from Bemstar, his back comes from Hanzagiran, his tail comes from King Crab, and his legs come from Red King. These monsters all combine to form the monster that you're looking at right now, Tyrant. And after combining, the monster goes on a rampage, taking down all the Ultra Brothers in his path to Earth. After taking out Zophie, Ultraman, Ultra 7, Ultraman Jack, and Ultraman Ace, he eventually winds up on Earth, where he fights Ultraman Taro, and ultimately loses, when Taro hurls the monster's own spear back at him after re-energizing it. And that's just about it for his history in his original appearance. He's appeared in another bunch of shows. He appeared in Ultra Galaxy Neo as the first monster of the Ray Blood Grande, as well as the Ultraman Zero films, as one of Ultraman Belial's monsters, one of the monsters who serves in the Darkness 5 in Ultra Zero Fight. He was going to be a monster in Ultraman Saga, but that scene got cut. And he was formed in Ultraman Ginga, and I believe that's about all of his appearances since then. So as you can see, he has been quite a reoccurring monster in the series, so his history is pretty extensive in the series. Now let's get on to detail. Now, of all of them, I'd say this is perhaps the best version of him out there. The other two releases are the Showa variation and the Ultra Galaxy Neo variation. And of the two, the Ultra Galaxy variation looks much closer in sculpt, but that was then, and this is now, and now, I definitely have to agree that this is the best version of Tyrant out there. He, of course, has the Neo paint job, like this is what he looks like in Ultra Galaxy Neo, but a lot more detail has been added to the character, like to the legs, of course, the torso, which is more glossy. The head definitely looks much better detailed. The only real nitpick I have is that the back and the tail are not colored. For some odd reason, Bandai decided not to finish coloring these, which is a real shame because the rest of the figure itself just looks fantastic. Which I also have been noticing has become a trend of Bandai, but we'll discuss that in later reviews, hopefully. But yeah, apart from the rest of him being unfinished, the figure itself just looks fantastic. Nice paint job, nice sculpting, and nice little upgrade, but I'll cover that in sizing. Now as for superpowers, I already made a video about those, so if you want to check those out, I'll probably link the video in here, so you can go check that out on your own time, but we won't cover them this time. Just go watch the video, and you'll see just what he can do. As for articulation, I believe he has the exact same points as the other Tyrants, but there might be one extra one I'm not knowing about. I'm not remembering. But anyway, both arms rotate 360 degrees, as you can see. The legs rotate 360 degrees. Both of them do. And I think the extra point that the other two didn't have is that his tail rotates 360 degrees. Or at least they would if it weren't for this oval-shaped sculpting in the back. But as you can see, it can definitely swivel, which is something the other two molds couldn't do. And looking at the head, I believe it's a glue seal that can be broken. I don't know if it is or not, so I'd say go ahead and do so at your own risk. so just be careful there. But if so, 5 to 6 points for articulation, which is pretty basic, but again, pretty nice. The little extra tail socket is actually a nice addition too, which just adds to the much better upgrade this Tyrant has in comparison to the others. And now let's get on to sizing. I mentioned earlier in detail that sizing was another nice little addition they made to this particular Tyrant, and to show you what I mean, let's pull out an Ultra that this particular variation of Tyrant fought, Ultraman Tiga. Now I say this particular version of Tyrant fought Tiga because, in reality, the figure of Tyrant you're looking at is based on his appearance in Ultraman Ginga, and in Ultraman Ginga, Hikaru transforms into Ultraman Tiga to fight Tyrant. So, yeah, there you go. But anyway, getting back on to sizing. As you can see, Tyrant looks much better sized here in comparison to Tiga. The other two Tyrant figures are actually pretty underscaled, like, if anything, I think they were about this small in comparison to the Ultras before him, but that just makes this version of Tyrant just so much better in comparison to the other variations. As you can see, he's much better scaled, which is really nice, and I find it a little ironic because he's based on the Spark Doll line, which is notorious for scaling down all their figures because it's a separate line. So if anything, this Tyrant would be overscaled in comparison to the other Ultras there, but oh well. For what it's worth, this is still a great size comparison, even if it is from a different line. Tyrant, I'd say, would look just about this big in comparison to the other Ultras he fought. And because I have one of the monsters that he fought as well, let's pull him out. Gomorrah. In Ultra Galaxy Neo, Gomorrah and Tyrant fought, as well as Ella King, who fought Tyrant. But I don't have him on me at this time, so for now let's just go with Gomorrah, because I'm sure a lot more people know and have Gomorrah. But as you can see here, again, the sizing is very nicely captured, which is great to see. Again, shows off the extra improvements this Tyrant has, and it's just nice to see. So, there you go. And so that just about does it for this review. History, he is pretty well known throughout the Ultra series. Detail is very nicely captured. The tail is a bit sloppy as well as the back, but the front looks very nicely done. You could say that it's a little half-assed. Articulation is pretty basic, and sizing is very nice. Now before I give a rating for this guy, I'm just going to have to state not what I'd call a rant, but a displeasure I have for the Spark Dolls, since I mentioned earlier that I wouldn't get them. Now I said earlier at the start of this video that I had a displeasure for the Spark Dolls. Here's why. Yes, I know they're a series of their own, but in comparison to the 6-inch line, there are 3 reasons why I won't be getting any figures from it. One, and first and foremost, the scaling. Every figure in the line, Ultra and Kaiju related, are scaled down to 5 inches. Normally this is not a problem, but because this particular line is exclusive only to Ultraman and not any other Kaiju franchise like Godzilla or Gamera, that ultimately makes it very limited and not very appealing or convincing for me to get them. Number 2, articulation is slashed. Believe it or not, a bunch of the Spark Dolls have much less articulation than any of the 6-inch figures do. For instance, Tyrant's articulation here was pretty basic, but if this were a Spark Doll of him, the only thing that would rotate would be his arms, which, again, is pretty unfortunate because it shows just how lacking these figures have. And lastly, the detail. Now this is mostly a mixed bag subject for the Spark Dolls because there are some that are nicely detailed, but a very big portion of them are not. If anything, paint jobs on Spark Dolls are either extremely sloppy, like with monsters, or they're only good from the front. Believe it or not, a lot of the Ultraman releases of the line only have the front painted, and the back is just a complete solid red color, or whatever color that the vinyl used for it is, which is extremely lazy for Bandai to do. But to answer anybody's questions as to why I decided to get this Tyrant, even though it's by technicality a Spark Doll, yes, it is a Spark Doll, but at the same time, it's also a 6-inch figure, and it's a very big upgrade from what the original Tyrants looked like. So basically, no, I won't be getting Spark Dolls because they're undersized, under-articulate, and under-detailed. They're just not my cup of tea, and if it's any type of Spark Dolls I will be getting, it's either the 6-inch line of them or monsters that just appeal me. And from the look of things, it's only going to be the 6-inch line because, from what I have been noticing with this new series, is that while 6-inch figures are no longer the norm, the ones that they do release are actually a much better quality than they have been in years. Because if you all remember, around the time of Zero's movies, it's just been nothing but a bunch of reissues, whereas here, they're actually going the extra mile and actually putting out some brand spanking new molds, which is pretty cool. With that said, getting back onto the review, sorry for trailing off like that. Again, detail is very nicely captured. Paint job is unfinished, but okay for the most part. Articulation is basic, and sizing is nicely captured. So in the end, I'm giving this figure a 9 out of 10. And I give it a 9 because, again, it's a great figure. It's just unfinished. So what the heck. That aside though, this is the best figure of Tyrant out there, and I definitely recommend you pick it up. And so that's it. I hope you enjoy this review. That's it for today's figure review. If you like what you see, or what I make, and wish to support me and help me create content faster or more efficiently, you can help me by supporting me on Patreon, and possibly get a video of your own made for you, or win several other prizes. You can also help me by supporting me here on YouTube, as well as Facebook and Twitter for anything else I may make in the future. And so that's it. I'll see you all next time.